to item number 19, sidewalk maintenance and repairs ordinance. And again, Ms. Langley.
So most property owners do not realize that California Streets and Highways Code sections 5600 through 5630 govern the maintenance of sidewalks. And so what the Streets and Highways Code says is that property owners are responsible for the maintenance of the sidewalks along their property. So for most properties, it's the frontage. If you're a corner lot, it's the frontage and the side. And then also Title IX, Chapter 3 of the City Municipal Code provides that property owners must keep sidewalks and planting strips in a safe condition. So even though we have those requirements, it doesn't address liability. And California courts have held that the city can be held liable for injuries as a result of private sidewalk damage if the city has not adopted a sidewalk liability ordinance. And where this comes into play is we'll get trip and fall injuries throughout the city. And the next thing you know, the city's receiving a claim for these trip and fall injuries because it was a raised sidewalk or something like that. And then we get into a situation where we're having to defend against that. We have to pull records to show, were we aware of the issue? Did we perform any maintenance? Did we notify the property owner? And so the purpose of this ordinance is to address the liability of sidewalk maintenance. So the proposed ordinance affirms property owners' responsibilities outlined in the Streets and Highways Code and the Municipal Code. It also defines a hazard. So this is very important because, as you're walking around and you're looking at raised sidewalks or separated sidewalks, through this ordinance, we would be able to define what a hazard is. The city may, at its discretion, make repairs or provide tree mitigation to ease the burden caused by street trees. So, where it's become problematic is in the subdivisions that were developed in the early 2000s, where you have planter strips with city street trees that were planted. Those trees were watered based upon surface irrigation. And so the tree roots are very superficial, and a lot of times we have raised sidewalks because of those shallow tree roots. And so through this ordinance, we would have discretion to determine whether or not the city should make the repairs versus the property owner, but the liability would remain with the property owner. So the ordinance codifies the property owner notification procedures. We'd be required to give them 2 notifications. The path for the property owners to request time extensions. If they can't get to it immediately, they can request a time extension of up to 90 days. Allowances for the city to perform repairs when property owner fails to do so. And then the administrative citation process, because this would be considered a nuisance, to be able to pursue repayment eventually through the lien process if necessary. An alternative would be to direct staff to modify the terms of the proposed ordinance, but staff is recommending to introduce an ordinance to establish the sidewalk maintenance and repair responsibilities by adding Chapter 11 to Title 6 of the Municipal Code. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Langley?
Diana, is there a procedure in place, forgive me if I missed it, to notify homeowners of this responsibility?
Yes, so there's 2 notifications that we would give them.
Got it. Thank you.
I would also ask, and also forgive if I missed it, if a property owner needs to get their sidewalk repaired but doesn't have the financial means to do so, is there a payment method or anything that we can offer in conjunction with this to get it taken care of?
We don't have anything in place right now to be able to do a payment method. That's one thing that we could bring forward is a policy in order to do that, and we'd have to determine what the interest rate would be, similar to what we're doing with the water and wastewater connection fees, and that there's an option for a property owner to pay it over a period of time. And if that's council's direction, then we would prepare that policy to come forward for council approval.
This might be an unfair question, but typically, if it's a lifted piece of sidewalk because of a root or something like that, what is that? Any ideas, ballpark, or what that's going to cost the property owner?
It's going to be a few $100s. We would waive the permit fee, but the contractor would need to come out, remove the sidewalk, address the tree root issue, perhaps remove some of the adjacent ground, and then re-pour the sidewalk. And so you're talking, it would likely be within the $1,000 to $2,000 range, depending upon the number of sidewalk squares that need to be replaced.
I could see where that possibly could be a burden, but you're saying the majority of this is in homes that are probably in that early 2000s vintage, but
No, I wish I could say that. We do have more street tree problems within those areas, but if you go throughout town, there's issues with sidewalks all over the place. The other benefit of this ordinance is that by putting the liability on the property owners, if there's a sidewalk issue, when we get claims now, the expectation is the city should have known. And a lot of times we don't know because there's so many issues throughout the city. And so by doing this and, notifying property owners that they are responsible for the maintenance and the liability, we're hoping that that will encourage more property owners to take a more proactive approach to address these issues with sidewalks along their properties.
I always hate to burden staff with extra work, but it seems to me that there might be some benefit in offering a payment plan to expedite the repairs. I don't know if the council feels the same, but
Well, part of that would be, if it's a health and safety issue, we have the ability to go in and address it right away. And then through that process as well, we could offer a payment plan for the property owners to be able to repay the city back. And so there'd be a difference of whether or not they're hiring a contractor or if they have an option to hire the city to do it and then repay the city for the work.
what would you suggest?
Well, based upon current staffing levels, it would be difficult for the city to be able to do the work in a timely manner. Another option would be to have on-call contractors that would be contracted to the city. And so the city becomes basically the project manager. And then through that process, we're able to get repayment from the property owners. I think that we could come up with some different options for council's consideration. And it might be multiple options that we move forward with just based upon the situation at hand.
I think with the goal of trying to get it remediated or fixed.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, no, maybe so. I got one. I need one more.
Yeah, that's fine. Is it a new thing that the property owner pay for this?
No, it's not. Previously, we haven't had a lot of teeth to it until we had the nuisance ordinance. We didn't have a lot of teeth within the municipal code to be able to really pursue property owners fixing their sidewalks. And so we would do notifications, we would get no response, and then things would linger to where the city would either end up just doing it or, that was basically the process that we had. So through this ordinance, it gives us more flexibility and ability to enforce it, and then also work with the property owners to address these issues in a timely manner. Some of these issues are pretty significant.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, in that situation, the city would step in if it's a health and safety issue. We immediately try to safe it up anyway, regardless of what's going on, to at least either cone it off or grind it down to address the immediate issue. But through this ordinance and by transferring, making sure it's very clear who the liability sits with, from a claim perspective, this helps us to be able to defend the city in these types of situations.
And then one more question. It's my understanding that in between the sidewalk and the curb, that green strip, the green strip is actually city, and the trees are the city's trees?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
In some situations, the right-of-way is actually right behind the curb, and the property owner still owns the planter strip. The trees, sometimes are city trees and sometimes they're not. It really depends upon the era of the subdivision as to who owns what.
And so where would somebody go to determine, to ask if it's their trees or not?
The engineering division, we have records of the maps, we have the aerial photos, we have, that ability to determine whether or not it's a city street tree or a private tree.
So if in the circumstance where it is a city tree and the roots are causing the sidewalk damage, the property owner is still responsible to repair the damage caused by a city tree?
They've been irrigating the tree. It's not the city's irrigation system necessarily that's been irrigating the tree. And so, it's that root system that's caused the raised sidewalk.
Would the property owner have the option to remove the trees?
We have had that situation where they have removed the trees. It's not, once we have these tree-lined streets where the trees are being maintained by lighting landscape maintenance districts, they might have, or what we might do is look at different options for either how the tree is replaced or what type of tree is replaced with to prevent those types of future shallow roots. And then in terms of future subdivisions and we've looked at our standard details in terms of making sure that that's not happening, so you have some type of tree root barrier.
I know there's one developer in town in particular that's a fan of no tree-lined streets.
Well, and that brings up a good point. A lot of the new subdivisions that are moving forward, the developers are opting not to do planter strips because it allows them to have bigger yards, front yards.
Backyard especially.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Through the mayor.
Yes.
To follow up to the mayor's question about, can we finance or do things of that nature? If we did get into that, would we be able to secure our upfront cost in that loan either by a lien on the property or attaching it possibly to property taxes to make sure that we were reimbursed at some point?
Yeah, that would be part of the process that we would identify. Right now, the way the ordinance is written, and then also the nuisance abatement ordinance, is that, if they don't pay, then on an annual basis, we review those folks that are more than 90 days past due. They have the ability to participate in a hearing to explain why they haven't paid. And then there's a list that comes before council for assessments to assess the property owner through the lien process. What we could do is, if we're going to finance, is figure out what that process looks like, whether it's a lien against the property in advance to make sure that we get repaid for the loan. And then the other thing that we'd probably want to analyze too is a max cap in terms of our annual budget that we would put towards this. The other option too is we do have CDBG funds that we typically receive on an annual basis for ADA improvements. And so another option would be for those that just aren't capable of paying to be able to utilize some of the CDBG funds. And I'd have to coordinate with Ben Moody to be able to help those property owners by utilizing the CDBG funds.
And some of those that we've used for property improvement, if I'm not mistaken, is like Freed and some others. We could probably partner with them and go through the same type of process then, correct? I get nod head.
I got a nod from Ben, yes.
That's good. Okay. Just everything's conceptual right now, just trying to figure out
Yeah,
where we
with the
might be able to go.
caveat that it's supposed to be in certain areas.
All right, thank you.
Income levels.
Okay.
Anyone else? No?
Just point of clarification, are you suggesting an amendment to this?
No, I'm asking staff to come back to us with some options.
Okay.
Yes, okay. No public comment because there's no public here. How about online?
No public comment.
Okay, back to the council for action.
Through the mayor, I move that we introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City establishing sidewalk maintenance and repair responsibilities by adding Chapter 11 sidewalk maintenance and repairs to Title 6 of the Yuba City Municipal Code and waive the first reading. And staff has got further directions on the other items.
Second?
All right, I have a motion by Vice Mayor Shaw, second by Councilperson Kirchner on item number 19. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, number 19 passes unanimously. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.